Start recording. So I've got that information. Let's see. So yeah, basically in this survey, the first part of it you filled out online. This part of it, we're going to talk about some of the same big issues, but have the ability to either elaborate on things that you haven't gotten to talk about or to demonstrate using screenshots, and I'll record the screen, and that way if I could go back, if you have something that you really wanted to show somebody, I can say, oh, check it out, here it is in live. So I just wanted to check in briefly and see if there was anything else that you wanted to elaborate about working with the grade book, or one of the questions that you wrote in an answer was, tell us about your experience working with the Canvas grade book. Have you been able to configure it to your satisfaction?
So I have been. I will say this is a course that doesn't have a lot of content. So my use of Canvas this semester is slightly different than when I've taught hybrid or fully online classes before, because in this particular course, it's our senior seminar course, and students are tasked with building an e-portfolio. And so it's not quite the same as when I've used Moodle and I've needed to embed videos and YouTubes and library resources and have forum discussions and a complicated grade book where I need to drop the lowest of certain assignments and quizzes and give extra credit for other kinds of things. So I've not used the grade book or a few of the tools in the way that I would have in Moodle. So I just want to say that, just because this is, when Justin and I discussed having a pilot, we decided this would be an excellent pilot, but it is a pilot. So it's not comparing apples to apples, I guess.
It's a little simpler of a setup.
Exactly. Because they basically have 10 assignments they submit and a final portfolio and a portfolio presentation. They do not have the multitude of pedagogical tools that I would normally require in a course, forum discussions, group posting, group collaborations, individual quizzes, turn it in assignments. They do have turn it in all the time in this particular one. But I have, in order for a hybrid or online class to mirror what happens in a face-to-face course, I have a plethora of tools that I use to make that happen. And this particular course is just not designed that way because it's different. So I will say that, but I haven't had trouble setting up the gradebook. What I love about Canvas is that you can Google it, and you can, often I don't even have to ask Bob. How do I set up a quiz in Canvas? YouTube comes up and it works. So unlike Moodle, where there are multiple versions adapted to each campus and different instances and this kind of thing, I have found that what I find for Canvas is very useful, and I can do that on my own. Obviously, I appreciate the help from Bob and the Faculty Center, but it has been much more intuitive than trying to find that information on my own for Moodle.
So you were able to configure your gradebook, how you're using it in this course fairly easily by just doing a couple of Google searches and
or asking Bob.
But
no, it's gone. The gradebook's been fine. Like I said, I haven't done anything fancy, and normally I do. I normally have a fancier gradebook.
That's good to know, and that is adapted to what people's courses are like. There's different content and what you're trying to achieve.
Right.
So recall, I wanted to give you an opportunity to expand on recall your earlier recommendation to the Academic Senate, and please provide some details about your reasoning in recommending either Canvas or Moodle. Is there anything that you wanted to expand on with that one?
Well, I put it in there, but there are two things I think that are really important that we consider. One is, no learning management system is going to be perfect. What will really matter will be the type of support and access to resources that we have. And that is not only true for faculty, but I've been a big advocate on campus for students. Students currently do not have a robust training or system in place for when things don't go right for them, whether it's their computer or Moodle or their browser or Turnitin, and so we don't have a faculty center for students. And so as the online or hybrid instructor, we end up troubleshooting a lot of this on our own. And so, and then, we as instructors can also contact the faculty center. So having something very robust in place, to me, is more important than the choice of a learning management system. I found Canvas to be very intuitive. I enjoy it. I did Sakai at UC Davis, and I did Moodle here when we first rolled it out, and now I'm doing Canvas. They all have, things also grow and change over time. So I happen to like Canvas, and there's a couple reasons why I feel very strongly we probably should adopt it. But again, really what matters is the people and support and resources we have for faculty and students. That's the most important, much more than the actual decision about whether Canvas or Moodle is important.
And so you see, like, in student use of the LMS, that there's a fair amount of students aren't able to quite use it to their potential because they don't have quite enough support currently, and that ends up falling on the professors.
Absolutely.
Who aren't necessarily, oriented towards that type of, it takes away from other things you're doing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Makes it exactly more difficult for us to figure that out. And also it takes away from, spending more time on discussion boards, redirecting student thinking, deepening their critical thinking, or putting together robust pedagogy and finding the right resource that will illustrate the concept that they need to understand.
And how much of that do you think is stuff that needs to be supported with a equivalent of the student center, like the faculty center? Or how much of it could be handled with, for instance, with Canvas? There are more options with 24/7 support, and there are that they have chat windows that you could.
Right. I think it would be it. So if this is the case, and I have heard slightly conflicting opinions about what that would look like for students, whether those chat functions really are for students, and if they're having an issue uploading something to turn it in or finding something, whether people could help it. So that I don't fully understand on my end what is offered to students, but that would be fantastic. That would take a huge pressure and a huge workload issue off. I think what happens with technology, and it happens to me as an instructor and it happens to students, sometimes there is an actual problem. And we have an interface issue between Turnitin and one of the learning management systems, or there's a network downtime, or who knows what it is. There is some actual issue. And then there's also students that go about this in a way that is not intuitive for a computer, and they don't know how to get the computer to do what they want them to. And you don't actually always know on your end whether it's your side or it's a bug side. So we need some way to help figure that out. And honestly, it could be a student faculty center, or it could be the Canvas piece of it. But right now for Moodle, we don't have it. We don't even have the training videos for Moodle anymore. We don't have any way. The Zoom is an example of that. So when I clicked Zoom when we were speaking and I said, oh, it's asking me for a code, my students get that. I never knew why my students got that because as far as I could tell, they would just click the Zoom link and it would open. But that's because students were going at it a different way. They may or may not have thought, even if I put it in an email and I say, please click the link, and I will show them on our face-to-face session where to click the link. They may forget, they'll Google it, they'll Google Zoom, Zoom will arrive, they don't have the code, they're frustrated, they've missed their synchronous meeting, they're worried about that. So those kinds of things, or like I said, a Turnitin issue, or sometimes I've had in Moodle library resources, I can't get the video to load, and I don't always know whether it's on the Moodle end or the library end or Alexander Street videos, those kinds of things. And students encounter these same types of problems. So it's helpful to have some sort of assistance for them so that we can focus more on the pedagogy, the curriculum, the student learning outcomes, and not, okay, have you enabled pop-ups? That's a huge one. They forget to enable pop-ups, and so then Turnitin or something else won't work on Moodle. Have you cleared your cache? These kinds of things, and IT can do some of it.
Is it like an IT help desk issue, or is it something that's specific to Canvas? And as a novice user, sometimes those things aren't obvious. Oh, I'm hitting a bug. This should be working.
Exactly.
Why is it not working?
Exactly. So to me, that is a huge piece of it. For Canvas, for our department in particular, there are three pieces. One, definitely that online chat or some kind of live tool, especially because when things are online in the 21st century, unfortunately, students don't want to wait until Monday when someone is available. They want, that it's midnight and they want to have help right then, everyone. So there's a piece. But the biggest part is for our WASC and other types of assessment data, we need to collect information throughout their undergraduate career. We have signature assignments, student learning outcomes. We need a way to collect data about those assignments for our own purposes. And students need to build a portfolio. And so Canvas has both of that. I haven't used the master grade book, but from the looks of it, this could potentially be revolutionary for us, as is the e-portfolio. Students could continue to upload as their freshmen, sophomores, and juniors their signature assignments. When they came to my senior seminar class, the one I'm piloting right now, they would have already uploaded their signature assignments and they would reflect on it. They would build their portfolio. The portfolio would be, my understanding, accessible to people who needed to review it, unlike Moodle, where we have to get them user access. Or so what we have done in the past, we've used My eFolio, we currently have a Weebly account for the department, and we have Dropboxes. We have all different kinds of ways of piecing this together. If this lived in one learning management system for our department, it would take away hours and hours of work, not only for tenure track, but also for adjuncts.
Does the feedback that you could give towards the e-portfolio, those comments and feedback, can you give student feedback in that?
I don't know yet. So this is brand new. We almost didn't try the portfolio as part of the pilot. We decided because it's so important, we would like to. And that I don't know. That's another disadvantage of Moodle, is not being able to provide private feedback on the forums. So for example, students participate in an online class discussion, some of my courses, in order to provide them feedback on why they got the grade they got and how they can improve their critical thinking and writing skills. I copy what they wrote in the forum. I paste it into a Word document. I highlight things. I provide comments. I save it. Then I create a fake feedback viewing area that has no points associated. I upload that file. I send it back to the student, who can then review it. It's very clunky. It's very time consuming. I'm always afraid I'll accidentally upload the wrong file, or I'm very careful. Exactly. But the fact that there is no private, I can't post to the forum privately, it is an issue in Moodle. So if there was something like that for the ePortfolio, or there was something like that in Canvas, that is another gigantic piece that is important. It could be
useful to the students too, if those comments to their ePortfolio from their professors track them through their experience as a student.
Absolutely.
They would have that, feedback, and they could rework on their portfolio. Like
Absolutely.
Like not having it be a dead document, but keep on working on their portfolio as they go.
Yes.
And that's a piece of it that I'd like to take a better look at too. Is there the ability with those e-portfolios for them to take it with them when they graduate?
Apparently they can make it public, and apparently yes, and this is our goal. That is the other reason we have to be able to make it public. A, because we have outside reviewers from the community, our community partners come in, and B, again, I think for some of our National Association of Education of Young Children and WASC accreditation, we need to be able to have this accessible to people who are not currently on campus. Obviously, the students share it publicly, so they know that it will be. They do this willingly. And my understanding is that in Canvas, this is possible, that they will be able to take it with them. We hope that then they will continue to work with their portfolio and potentially even show it to future employers. So we do want it to be a living document. We're not there yet.
That sounds good and important. I mean, one of my first courses in 2013 that I took here, I did build a Weebly site because it was in the education department and it was part of the effort and I have to say that site, which was a junk site for the first year, but then it was the site that I had, and then I put more stuff there, and over the course of time, it's been, I use it today.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's very useful, and I've been glad that it was part of Weebly and that I could take it with me. And but something that so I think solving that problem which is, and if this is the solution, then that's fabulous.
Yeah.
You know, or if it could be the solution, then that is really valuable, I think, too.
Even if it could just be simply exported from Canvas into some format that could then be in a Weebly or something. When we had my eFolio, I spent quite a bit of time building that as a sample for students. But since we no longer have an account, my eFolio is gone now. And I've lost that, you know, unless I buy a new subscription, I've lost it. So it is important. I think you're right. I think you may or may not like it the initial time that you do it, but later you got something, you planted the seeds.
It's a good place to start, and like, oh, there's that writing that I did for that course. And
Absolutely.
When I would have another course that would require me to do a blog, then I'd do it there too.
Yeah.
And then those things, so that was...
It also helps students not lose their work.
Yeah, exactly.
Because students have their computers crash, or they do it on their phone or whatever. And I have students now that are seniors that say, I don't have that signature assignment anymore. But if they were building it along the way, there wouldn't be loss. That's one of the beauties of a learning management system, that the student cannot lose their work or turn it in late, and the professor cannot lose their work or forget to turn it back in. It's housed somewhere. So that's brilliant.
Yeah, that is good. So I appreciate that feedback. Let's see. And so we'll go to the questions that we have been, and maybe at some point later, you could, if there's something about that, and it could very well show up in one of these other questions, you could show me in your course what that actually looks like, what the ePortfolio looks like, and what you can see on it. So this is sharing your experience. So when you respond, please provide examples of your experiences using your Canvas or Moodle courses. So the ease of use of Canvas is the general topic of this one. Please describe your experience using Canvas this semester at Snow State.
Overall, it's been fairly easy. As I said, those tutorials are great. I won't say it's been without any issue. I did need those first few days to plan with Bob, and he and I had to go into the HTML and figure out what was happening, why things were, you know, funny shape on the site or moving around. We've had a couple of Turnitin issues. So it's not, you know, without speed bumps, but that's to be expected. So I haven't found it to be, it's definitely not worse than Moodle. And I found it overall to be fairly intuitive. So yeah, I think it's been pretty easy.
So once you kind of got over that initial
setup,
learning curve of setup of what's going to port over well, and that leads well into the question 18, the migration experience. If you have not already discussed it, tell us about your experience either building your course from scratch or importing coursework from an existing LMS.
So Bob was fantastic. He helped me import my course that I haven't taught in a few years, pulled it up out of the Moodle archives. We put it into a sandbox. From the sandbox, we brought it right over into Canvas. And not everything was perfect. We weren't sure how that was going to come over. But other than the titles being too long, and so there was some funky layout and some little cleanup that had to occur. Basically, my course went over with the documents and the files. Some things ended up in, different formats or whatever, but basically the vast majority of my course was able to be imported. So that was great. And then when I built it, one of the things I absolutely love about Canvas, and again, this is hats off to Bob, I didn't use the modules view. So I have a landing page, a splash page, and it looks like a web page. And so I have what all my students, and Bob also call the scroll of death. I put this in my comments. I have so much on my Moodle pages. You have to scroll and scroll and scroll and scroll because it's top down, and students don't really care about the first topic, the welcome area, maybe with some key assignments they do, but they don't care what happened on August 22nd anymore. But if you hide it, they don't have access to their grades. And so there's not an easy way. So I tried to put things in ebooks, many things I put now in ebooks to have less scroll of death. But in Canvas, I have a super fun site. I put everything into suitcases and portfolios with pictures. And when you click it, it takes you to that student learning outcome. So if I wanted to do this for actual content, I would do something like this. I might have, for one of our GE and major courses, Child Development 420, I would have it by the theory and the theorist. So you could click on Bandura and it would take you to all of the information about Bandura and the videos and the resources and all that, and I'd have his picture. So it's a little bit more user-friendly for that. Students often find Moodle confusing of trying to find things. So if you have a visual for them, a hook, and then you can put all of the related images there, that's good.
Can you show me like, what one of those suitcases looks like with your content in it?
Yeah, so here we go. Can you see it? All right, so this is their portfolio course. I just have some basic Canvas and tech support, you know, just some links up here. And then if you click the, there we go. If you click it, it takes them to what their introduction is. It takes them to a handout on how to do reflective writing, and it'll take them to the assignment. So each one of these items that they need to build in their portfolio is a suitcase. And when they click it, it takes them to information about that suitcase. So the layout feels more like a traditional web page or web design than Moodle. For example, I have my course here. This is an online class for our ECE certificate. So I've put in these labels so students can find it, the nuts and bolts of the class. And then here's course communication, key assignments. So I have this whole like large area that instead of having it linked to that, it's in a square. Here's the first day. Here's the second day. Here's the third day. And this is actually, if you click, you know, an ebook, you see that there's even more information. Sometimes students, this is also confusing on Moodle with the books. They don't realize there's information inside these books. So they click the first page and they think they're done. So they're kind of, it's like an onion or an artichoke, one student said. It's like you get lost in the layers. So you continue going. I try to have, you know, images and things that help. I do hide things that maybe I need that they don't need to make it a little less cluttered in the student view, but you can see it's just a little clunkier than this, where I have all of these suitcases that you can click on. The other thing that I will say that is great is right here. Students have been asking since I started using Moodle in 2011 for this calendar function. Students in Moodle, right over here, they tend to go to the sidebar, and what they want is something that says, click here to submit all assignments for points that my professor will grade. They don't care if it's a forum, a quiz, a Turnitin, or so to have it in under activities, and they have to click assignments and forums and glossaries, and they get confused. What they really want is a giant calendar view and so because this is all green because it's my class, but they would have different things. It's like a master calendar of what things are due for them when. And students, so far, I'm not finding, I have had no questions for the first time ever about what's due when in Canvas. Whereas Moodle, it's a daily or weekly occurrence from large numbers of students. Even though I write the agenda on the board, I put it in the ebook, I set all the due dates on Moodle. And honestly, when you do multiple places to make it easy for students to find, there's more risk of there being a slight error between two, and then you change it and you
update it on one side.
Yes, and then next semester you update it, but you forgot that it says August 22nd. They're like, why is something due on a Saturday? Well, because I forgot in the ebook it was that. I updated the assignment. And so this calendar, and I created my assignments right in the calendar. So I found that to be really useful. I kind of like this. It's really silly, but let's see where if I can find my courses. There's my little train. I have a little train taking off and it's moving. I'll have to, how I can see now. I can't find it. How do I get? Where's my view? All courses. Oh, that's in all courses. Hold on, move view over here. I have to find it. I have to figure out how to get it.
If you go to like the pages, was it on one of your pages?
No, it's the actual course. When I can click on
the dashboard, I think.
Oh, there we go. So I have a moving train that goes with the suitcases. It was a whole theme because they're seniors. They're getting ready for their next journey as professionals. So that was the idea. So that's fun. You know, it's nice. It's a little teeny touch, but
the train that leaves Hogwarts.
Yeah.
in the real world.
Exactly. So yeah, like I said, I haven't done as much with Canvas as I have done extensively with Moodle, but so far,
And in Moodle, people can do things like add the kind of opening and closing those different areas of content, right?
So you can highlight them.
Or isn't there something that it can be closed and then you open it up and then.
Right, but what that does is that hides everything to the students. So should they ever need to go back and have the content from August 22nd, they don't have access if I hide it. And it hides their grades in the gradebook. Now, maybe not in this year's version, but in the past that has been the case.
Well, I'm not talking about actually hiding it. I'm talking about like it's spring-loaded. You open it, you expand it, and then it shows. There's like it'll open up a menu.
Okay.
It'll open up, and so basically it would look just like this.
But
on the left side, next to the January 17th, there'd be a little arrow. And if you click that arrow, then it would go. And
it would make it bigger.
It would just make this one. You would just see January 17th Zoom.
Okay.
So you wouldn't have to scroll down. Like you could leave it so that your course would show those 12 of 15 different things that you could open up.
Okay. Yeah. Well, maybe I don't know that feature. That'd be great.
Well, there are, these systems all develop in reaction to each other. And so they're all co-evolving through time. So you were here from the beginning of Zoom, you made it work, you figured out the best ways to work, and then
things changed. Yeah, absolutely.
2 years ago, they added a feature that, how can you...
Right. And it depends on the theme as well. Because often I've had, I'm not a fan at all of this thing in right here, contribution towards the course grade. You cannot turn this off. And that tends to bother students because they're like, well, how come I only have, I'm getting an F in your class, I have 20%. No, you've only completed 20% of the assignments. It's the beginning of the semester. Those kinds of things just create a lot of panic. So the theme matters a lot.
So those things are tied into the theme, and that if you chose a theme that works the way that I'm suggesting, it might have that.
Right, exactly.
Exactly. There might be other things that come with it. Yeah. Great. Let's see. So this is question 19. Your overall experience. What is your impression of Canvas overall?
It's been great so far. I've enjoyed it. I like it. Yeah, I like it.
It's worked well for you, and it's worked well for your students. It sounds
they are not complaining. Other than turn it in, I haven't had any complaints from them. They're turning their work in on time, and they're getting my announcement messages. And so far, it's gone quite smoothly. Again, like I said, the caveat being this is not a content-heavy course, so they have things they need to turn in that they're building on their own. But it's not. A lot of Zoom meetings or links to library resources.
Like, would you weigh in on the topic of so there's one way that Moodle can be more open in terms of you can customize it in different ways, customize different themes and different views, and you can customize the grading more. You can add formulas that weigh different things. So, and Canvas pushes a little bit more towards forcing you to organize yourself and to organize your course, so it becomes a little more standardized.
Yes.
So I was just wondering if you could weigh, there's some teachers that end up feeling more constricted maybe, and then some teachers that might think that it's actually good for the students to have more of a sense going from one course to another, what they're going to expect. But on that sort of customization versus standardization, how do you feel that might affect the community as a whole?
That's a great question. I have had a number of students say they wish there was a little more standardization, that when they go into everybody's Moodle course, it's organized differently, they know how to find things, and that it depends a lot on the instructor. So I think in some ways students would like that standardization. I tend to be one who likes to turn on all the tools and do my own things, so I do like to do that piece, but not at the expense of having people be lost or not being able to support it. So we need something that works. We just need something that works. I like to do different things with my gradebook. On the other hand, I don't like my gradebook to be smarter than me. So I always have some set number, 500 or 1,000 points, we drop the lowest, and it's all just a percentage. I'm not one that has heavily weighted formulas or anything like that, because I've had issues with the gradebook in Moodle in the past where it has not worked, or things have been lost, or a number of things have happened, and it's made me sufficiently nervous that I want to be able to have some redundancy and be able to have a backup. So I'm not a big fan of having too many bells and whistles. I do like to drop the lowest and have a couple extra credit assignments, but the major customization of it, I think it's more confusing for students, for them to understand what their grade is based upon. And I think that there's more risk unless you happen to be really good at those kinds of things.
And you can make mistakes and not know.
Exactly. Exactly. Absolutely. Sometimes also in terms of the way students see their grades, there's different functions you can do that in Moodle, and sometimes it helps and sometimes it adds a lot of confusion or frustration to students. So that doesn't, to me, I've hit this already a little bit with Canvas. I don't like the fact that something's called a quiz when it's just a survey. Okay, I would like to call that something else, because I don't want students to feel that they're being quizzed when all I'm asking is, what did you do as an undergraduate? Did you file for your graduation application? I don't want them to feel that it's a quiz, but honestly, we can always explain that.
So words matter, and sometimes Canvas in its standardization, it says, this is a quiz functionality.
Exactly.
And it's just me asking you a question, or I want you to look at this video.
Sign up for a time to present, right? And it's a quiz. But honestly, I think we can explain those things. It's wonderful to have a lot of great tools, but we need tools that work, and we need tools that are simple enough for anyone to pick them up and to begin using them. If it's too fancy and too confusing, then we're going to lose a lot of people, and we're going to create a lot of heartache. And I don't know that the payoff is better. To me, the big thing was I initially thought I had to have the modules page be my page. So I thought I still had the scroll of death, and that I had this very ugly basic layout. But once Bob showed me how to create a splash page that didn't look like that, actually I was able to customize the one thing that I felt was important. And so it didn't bother me. I think we'll have, campus people who like both, some will say go for simplicity, some will say go for the fancy tools. Like I said, I just don't want students to be lost in this discussion.
And I guess the question is sort of what provides the most benefit to the most people.
Right.
And that is difficult to gauge. I think that there are the faculty power users, they're able to engage with Moodle in ways that motivates them. And in Canvas, if you have less people that are lost, then it'd be hard to measure that over the course of a semester, but that is a real benefit too. So.
Right. And for me as an instructor, I would have something that works on a consistent basis, that's fully supported, that's simpler, rather than a lot of fancy tools, because I just want something that works. That's been the biggest issue. And a lot of students are not fully ready for online learning. We can assume that when they step into our face-to-face classroom that they know how to take notes, they know how to read, probably know how to write an essay. They may or may not need some additional support with some of their skills, but we know that they have those tools. We can't assume that they know how to clear their cache or enable a pop-up or navigate Moodle, because those are different sets of skills, in particular for students of non-traditional age. But even some of the younger ones, because they think it works like Facebook. Well, how come we can't chat with you? Well, because I'm not online. We didn't set up a Zoom meeting, right? But on Facebook, I'm like, well, Facebook has a little green thing on him. Or how come I can't see my forum post? Well, there's a 30-minute buyer beware, like Amazon. You have to remind them, well, because they'll post like 4 or 5 times thinking they're not getting credit, because so just little things like that, people can fall through the cracks. So I think simpler is probably better. And then I think the people who really want to do cool things, maybe they could come here and get some additional help, because like I said, I think some of the cool things are probably possible on campus. It just needs to be, and I think that's actually shown to the Moodle community as well. You get a lot of questions about things that I could answer for them. Because for years and years, I've encountered these kinds of things. There's a huge amount of the Moodle community that's just basically, how do I add a student or a TA or these kinds of things. And then other people, I'm like, wow, like these people must be coding, because they have these questions that I'm not even sure I understand the full implication of. I'm a pretty robust user. So I think we do have, different groups on campus.
Yeah, definitely.
And that's a problem with standard conversation.
Yeah, well, it's a very diverse group of people, both from the student side and from the faculty side, and meeting everybody's needs and helping as many people as possible. Let's see, any particular strengths? And I'll try to go. I can see that you've got about 9 minutes left. So, oh no.
No, my computer
your clock is wrong.
It's wrong. I don't know why.
Okay.
But
I was going, oh my God, how is that possible?
No, it's fine.
Okay.
You're fine.
Okay. So the strengths and weaknesses, and maybe I'll frame this just a little bit of, do you see any, the general question is, question 20, how have you discovered any particular strengths of Canvas? And I was just wondering if you could talk to a little bit about, you've taught online only courses, face-to-face courses, and you're sensitive to that. Do you have a sense in terms of Canvas, whether it has any particular strengths towards online versus face-to-face?
I would have to teach a more content-based course to see how it all interfaced. But so far it seems to be working fine. And again, that just comes back to the same things I've said about student support and ease of navigation and how we get people up and running in this. So I don't know. I know I have many colleagues at the community colleges. They all use Canvas and they love it. They do say it's a little bit stifling. It won't do some of the things they wish that they could do, but they love the support and they don't seem to encounter quite as many issues as I find students do. It also is a little bit related, I think, to our campus and whether or not we are going towards online or hybrid classes or not. Some people just use it to post their syllabus, and then other people use it for flipped classrooms, and other people use it for fully online classes. So it depends on what you need.
And it does have tools like providing, if you use the speed grader, for instance, and you could provide video feedback that you can click through and make a little video where you just, without having to leave the app and uploading something.
Yeah,
that's something like that on an online course could be helpful to make the course feel more personal a little bit. Things like that.
I guess the only thing I felt a little clunky in Canvas would be, I found it clunky to have to upload my files and then put them where I want. Moodle's nice for that, where you just have a drag and drop, where you just click upload the file. And I felt it was a little clunkier in Canvas to get resources in there. Now that they're in there, however, I have them, they're stored, and I don't have to try and, bother Bob to go back into the graveyard of whatever it was to bring.
Are those resources available to you if you were making another Canvas course?
Yeah, so once you get them in Canvas, but you can't, it's not as intuitive. That's the one thing that's not as intuitive compared to Moodle. I create a new handout. I have to upload it into Canvas and then from there bring it in where I want it to be. Whereas Moodle, I can just put it right in under that scroll of death. I can just drag and drop it or click the file that I want to upload.
And so the advantage is that it's a little bit a better repository, organized of your files that you upload. And the disadvantage is that it maybe takes more clicks to build the content in the first place, because you kind of have to think about.
Yes, and more clicks to organize, because if I want that information accessible later, then I have just this list of files right now on the side, so I need to put them all into folders and do what I would do on my desktop to make them a little bit more intuitive. Whereas in Moodle, because it's sort of modules oriented, which Canvas is too, but it would be associated with a theme. So if I had this one theorist and I had a handout that went with that theorist and a website that went with that theorist, it would all be associated there rather than like on the side, a general thing. And then I have to remember, okay, this is for that theory or theorist.
So in Moodle, you kind of use your course organization as an organization for your files.
Yes.
And so if you have something about a particular philosopher, educational philosopher, all of your resources then are in that part of the course, and that's kind of the way you organize your file.
Yep, and that's how I also get things from one section of Moodle to the other. So I have two grad classes right now that are very similar, and so if I want to move something, I can, or I have a class, if I need a file, if somebody doesn't have information on Piaget for whatever reason, and I would just want to provide them that resource, I can import that single resource. Rather than do a full Moodle import, I just import the single resource that I want, the ebook or the quiz or whatever, and so I can.
And you find it in your other class, and then bring it over.
Exactly.
Yeah, that makes sense. It makes a lot of sense. Any particular challenges? This is question 21. You've encountered any difficulties working with Canvas?
Just turn it in.
Oh yeah, turn it in. And the turn it in problems you found related specifically to Canvas, but they were different in Moodle?
I've had huge issues with Turnitin and Moodle as well, depending on the instance and how it works. But this particular time I had students that were unable to use Safari, but then it worked in Chrome. But then Bob and I went through, he can probably give you more information about this, but I had a number of anomalies with Turnitin, the way that it was working, and I had multiple students. For example, they couldn't click the continue button, so they'd upload their assignment, but they could never finish because they couldn't click the current. I don't know whatever happened with that. I don't know. I just took emailed copies, which I don't like to do. But I took email copies to get through that. I had another time where we found that some reason it wasn't linking or doing something properly, so we had fixed it. We troubleshot all of the student learning outcomes, and the next week we still had an issue with Turnitin. I know Turnitin's a plugin, so it is not necessarily linked to Canvas. It could be linked to Turnitin and something else. We do have large issues with cheating and plagiarism on campus, and we also have signature assignments that are the same because of that WASC and assessment data, so we have to keep the assignments the same so we can track our own development as a department over time. So we need things to go through Turnitin, so we really need Turnitin.
I see. So you use, in order to be able to track the growth of the way students respond to different questions, you have to ask the same questions.
Yes.
And then
we have the same exact assignment.
You have to have the exact,
which normally you don't do if you want to avoid cheating and plagiarism, because you want to renew it, so you can't. But we have to for our signature assignments, which is what they build in their portfolio. Because, and then we, for our own purposes, for our own self-evaluation, we use those assignments to see how students are or are not meeting the student learning outcomes over time.
Are those signature assignments that are developed by your department?
Yes. And they're common to all sections of the course.
Common to all sections of the course. And so can you just give me an example of what one of those signatures was? This portfolio? No, the
portfolio is the culmination of that. So portfolio contains all of the signature assignments, plus a GE reflection and a few other things. But for example, Children and Families in a Diverse Society, EDEC 270, it's a core class. It's required for the major, for the minor. It's also required for the child development permit. It's just one of our core classes. And that has a diversity in action assignment where we're we're evaluating and assessing students' knowledge of meeting the needs of children and families in a diverse society. That student learning outcome, SLO 2, maps onto our code, the National Association of the Education of Young Children, that has a standard about that. And we have 2A, B, and C, and students are evaluated. We collect data about how well they write, how well they think critically, how well they can assess the diverse needs of learners, how they're going to work with families, questions of access, all different kinds of things we assess in there. And then we collect that data over time to evaluate the job that we're doing as a department so that we can better meet the needs of students. How are our students doing? What do we need to tweak in terms of content? What do we need? We also do an exit survey as part of a giant assessment that we do in our department. So that assignment has to stay the same. We also have multiple sections of EDEC 420. This is probably going to go away as a GE, but has been a GE class. It's also a major class, a minor class. It used to be a prereq for the credential. It is no longer. It's also used for human development. It's Area E. That class also has many similar assignments, and we have often issues with cheating and plagiarism. So that needs to go through Turnitin. So we need Turnitin for the cheating and plagiarism. We also need to make sure students are not sharing assignments, that their work is their own. And so we do use this a lot. So this last class, the seminar that I'm using for Canvas, they take those 12 assignments that they have written and already uploaded to Turnitin, and we don't regrade those assignments. They write a reflection that shows their growth. So we expect them to be different as freshmen and sophomores than they are as seniors. So we're looking for growth over time, and then they reflect upon each of these student learning outcomes, each of which is linked to a key course. So it's all tied together.
Did they redo that assignment?
They don't redo the assignment. They
assignment,
reflect on the assignment. So they talk about how the assignment helped them meet the student learning outcome.
Okay. And the WASC, that's an external agency.
Yes.
Yeah. And then so they review some of that data, the self-review data that you
We're required to keep it. And we review it every year as a department, and we review our exit surveys, and we see what students say, what they liked about the program, what we look and see, do themes emerge, are we talking enough about children with special needs, are we talking enough about meeting the needs of dual language learners, are we talking about diversity, is there an emphasis on play, and then we also look in our classes, do we feel like students are really talking about these theories and theorists and research, that body of knowledge that we want them to leave with over time, so that we can improve our program. We can better meet their needs, and we can have a higher quality program.
Yeah, well, thank you for that explanation.
You're welcome.
I think that and I can see they turn it in and why that helps keep everybody sort of honest and makes everybody aware of what's going on, and so that you're able to use those common measures year after year. Makes sense.
Okay.
Let's see. So the workflow, this is question 22. Were you able to reasonably recreate all the workflows that you used in Moodle? You've taught this course before, right? Do you feel like you were able to reasonably recreate all your workflows?
Yes. Again, Turnitin is an issue because you can't bring Turnitin assignments over. So since the class is entirely based on Turnitin, it requires recreating each assignment every single semester, which is a bummer, but that's not related to Canvas. That's related to Turnitin and Moodle and Canvas, how that all interfaces. So, it's more work to set this up than just bringing in my class over from a previous semester, because in Moodle I would just bring it over and tweak a few things. On the other hand, it gave me the opportunity to have a much better site. I think that it was worth it, and it wasn't a horrible amount of time or investment. Anytime you do something new the first time, it takes time. It was fine.
Yeah, so it gave you some chance to possibly improve parts of it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. And it was, how long have you been on Moodle? That's been
2011.
2011, so about 7 years. And
I had Sakai for 3 years at UC Davis.
And so some of these courses, you've been carrying content for a while.
Yes, and actually that's been an issue because some of my courses are crashing with certain things, and Bob thinks it may be related to the fact that it's trying to go back to Moodle 1.8 or 9.
Using legacy
and
code and parts of it.
Yeah, and so I'm getting some really messy HTML that we're having to clean up and things like that. It is a bummer to not be able to have things live longer than a year. Because a lot of our classes we teach every other year, or maybe you're teaching load changes, or and it takes so long to build an online or hybrid class. You want to be able to use it for a little while. Of course, you're going to tweak it and bring new readings and bring new things in, but you're not going to reinvent the wheel every single semester. It's nice to do a good overhaul every so often, but it is rough when things break, or all of the library links changed over the summer. So one of the classes I teach online, I had to go back like a needle in a haystack and find every single library link and update it. When you create it takes hours and hours and hours and hours and hours. It's way more work to teach a good online or hybrid class than a face-to-face class, honestly.
It totally makes sense.
So there's an investment process. If you can keep it for a little bit.
And it sounds like, I think in this fast-moving world, 7 years is a reasonable amount of time, and I think that they are looking for, a long-term commitment here too, one way or the other. We'll do quickly because we are running out of your time. Accessibility, did you notice any features or issues that might affect individuals with disabilities in accessing coursework in Canvas?
I did not. I find the Moodle actually has more issues. I find that the hot linked font and some of the fonts are so light. Sometimes I go back and I'm like, wow, why isn't that bold-faced? And I'll go into HTML and it actually is bold-faced. It doesn't show up the differences, the contrast differences. I see okay, I don't see great after reading years of academic articles. So I can imagine students with any kind of visual concern might find that to be an issue. I haven't encountered, I don't have any students with DSS accommodations this particular term. I have had multiple ones with large, amounts and differences in the past on Moodle. So I'm very sensitive to that. And I've always worked very closely with Jack in DSS or anyone in DSS to make them accessible. And I try to always put in the accessible text and make sure it's screen reader available. So I'm very sensitive to that. I haven't felt like it's been that different in Canvas.
Moodle prompts you every image you put in to do the
accessible text
and stuff.
And Canvas doesn't always. That is true. That's definitely true. And I don't know about the copyright either. I don't feel like the images that Canvas was, maybe I don't remember if it prompted me to put in where the pictures came from, whereas Moodle does. This is my own, or this is from Commons or something else.
I know that it's got integration with Flickr and stuff like that.
You can just take it.
You can with Google Images or something. You can say I want to search on something that's
copyright free, right?
Copyright free or
right. And again, the other thing too with DSS is I don't know, because this is not a content-based course. So if I had to actually be providing content online, that might be, and I don't know how it interacts with VoiceThread. I use VoiceThread a lot. It's one of my students' favorite tools. I can't imagine there be any difficulties with it. I see that it's linked in as an external tool. But VoiceThread, whatever learning management system we have, would be wonderful to make it very compatible with VoiceThread, because it's a very powerful tool and students adore it. And it's very, again, DSS accessible, because you can use text, video, audio. It's fantastic. And very interactive.
Yeah, it did occur to me that the fact that Canvas has all those multimedia features built in, even if you're going to be teaching a course in sign language, you'd be able to do that much better in Canvas. And then it does have some of those multimedia features that are built in as part of different ways that you can respond. Those things could be pretty useful for those situations. Possible transition. If SSU decides to adopt Canvas, what types of support, training, information would best help your colleagues make a smooth transition? So I'm just trying to think if you have any input of if we do decide to go to Canvas.
People will want to know how to import their course from Moodle. So we're going to need some kind of video or training or what else. You're going to be inundated at the faculty center about that. People are going to want to bring their course over. And then probably the grade book, I imagine people also will want to, will have concerns about that, because most people will want to use that. And then other than that, I mean, maybe even just a facts page of, in Moodle, it's this, in Canvas, it's this. It just sort of that, something like that. And then just make sure that there's enough support, whether it's from Canvas or the faculty center, and some version for students, that people can get questions, answered.
And you made some good comments earlier about the student facing side, worrying about that transition from the students. Too.
Right. Make it as intuitive as possible. And in some ways, again, that goes back to your question about standardization. I would say make it hard to get lost or mess up. And if that means you lose a couple of cool features, I'd say probably that's what we should do. Unfortunately, people might not like me on campus for saying that. And I won't even like myself, because I like to turn on all the tools. But you just really, there's nothing worse than being a student at 10 o'clock at night or midnight, the night before your paper is due, and you can't upload it to turn it in, and you think you've lost 100 points, and you're reaching out to your professor, and there's nothing worse as a professor to not know how to help that student. You log back in and you have 5 emails from students that they're all, and it escalates very quickly. I am panicking, and it doesn't have to be that way. I always just tell students, that's why I'm here. If there's a problem, let me know. We'll work it out.
Mm.
There's an actual human on the other side here. But it does, escalate quite quickly. And
Yeah,
so,
that makes sense, and I'll make sure that's one way or the other. That's going to be an issue either way. And it sounds like Turn It In is both an essential feature and tool, and it's also something that ends up causing some drama either way, with either platform. So
exactly.
that's good to know too. Any additional comments that you want to?
No, I'd be curious to see by the end of the pilot what other people's classes looked like and what they, like if they had, I don't know, I mean, not like a whole obviously interview like that, but just 2 cents. Here, I thought the strongest point was this, and this was the thing that I found to be the most frustrating, or the thing I didn't like, whatever it is, just some sort of little thing. I'm curious. I didn't even know who all else was in the pilot until we received the email about the interviews. I was like, okay, I know that person. So it's kind of nice to know other people that are in the group and just see their courses or what they've done.
Yeah,
some sort of share out would be kind of cool.
Yeah, it would be good to see different people like develop that sense of some of those best practices for setting up courses, like you were saying, that if you've got a course that's got tons of resources, here's kind of a template of a good way, and maybe looking at the way that those 16 people, all of them are, active, intense users, and maybe looking at those courses will give us some good clues as to some of those best practices. Like off the top, you guys had to discover that, well, I can organize my course through pages, and I can customize it that way. So having a faculty member who, do you like to customize your Moodle to make it look beautiful?
Right. You might like this tool.
If that's important to you, then
it'll take you an extra 45 minutes, but if you want to do it, here it is. And then people can decide, just even on, so if you look at, there are bare bones Moodle pages, but so I created a word cloud and I brought in all of these pictures, and this takes hours and hours, but it was Johanna who first showed me that you could bring art in here. And I was like, oh, that's great. And then so now that's just part of what I do. And it takes a whole lot of time, but I like it because I want students to have it. This probably took more time than the modules page, but it was worth it to me. So yeah, I think it's good that people can just know this is possible, and then they can decide if you want to do it or not. Because the problem, I think the biggest thing is going to be the diversity of use. And so people will want different things on campus. And I imagine that psychology and history and business and nursing and wine business and education and everyone else will be using this in a different way because of their discipline. But then each individual instructor will also be using it differently. And then you have a whole set of students that will be interfacing it. And then the poor students, they're also in multiple disciplines if they're in GE patterns and things. So it's hard to balance meeting the needs of everyone. So I'm glad that you're doing it, because I think it's great to have a pilot, and then, we can get information. So that's great. Yeah,
that's the best. We'll have a hard time. There's a lot of great information. It'll be hard to process it all in the next couple of weeks, but we're going to do the best that we can.
Okay.
And I really appreciate you sharing your course and your work. Let's see. And I thank you so much for.
You're welcome. Let me know if you have any questions or anything else.